Yeah, for sure. Like those thoughts were always there. I think I self-doubt a lot. Like this unwavering confidence you were talking about, it could have been also recklessness from being younger and not wanting to do what other people tell me and being a bit more rebellious in my approach and do my own stuff. But I do play it safe. I think about playing it safe. Sometimes I think maybe I should do an environment design just because I have too many characters, but I have so many ideas about characters that I want to portray. It's like, oh, I'll just do another character. But I do play it safe, and I do think about my career as well. But mostly, I've been fortunate that I don't have to because I keep getting rewarded by what I want to do, and most of the work that comes to me, it's personal stuff that I did regardless of being production oriented or commercial. So I just keep doing more of that. But it's a good point to explore. Maybe I should explore it a lot more in the future. Like who knows if I do something more like an environment and 5 vehicle designs, and then maybe I'll have a lot more clients coming into the door. It's definitely possible. So I think it's both. Like safe, but also don't forget why you were excited to join the industry and to do this kind of work.
Please welcome senior concept artist Miguel Nogueira to this episode of the Learn Squared podcast. Miguel shares his creative journey and how focusing on his passions and interests were all the basis he needed to form a successful career. So let's jump in and hear more from Miguel about how sticking to what you know can help you massively and the potential curveballs it can throw your way. Cool. Okay, let's do this. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Learn Squared podcast, and I'm delighted to welcome on very special guest today, Miguel Nogueira. Welcome, Miguel.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
1 second, let me just sort my camera out. Just as we began, technical difficulties have already begun.
Oh,
welcome back to the podcast. How's it going?
yeah, it's great. Thanks for having me again, and really appreciate it to be on the podcast talking to you. And it's been quite a while that we've talked about the possibility of doing a
Yes.
podcast. I'm not sure how long ago that was. I'm kind of afraid to go back on Discord and see how long was it ago because I'll feel old. But yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem, man. And just for the record, I want the record to know and the record to state, I think that's how you're supposed to pronounce it, is this episode should have happened many, many years ago. One cool thing or bad thing, if you see it from the Black Mirror perspective of technology, is everything's time-stamped. So you can see when things are said. And when the episode began, almost 5 years ago now, you're one of the first guests I tapped up. And we agreed.
Dang.
And I didn't set it up. So firstly, my apologies for taking so long
It's
to
all
get back
good.
to you. But I'm glad we finally got it done. And I guess in that time, there's a lot more to hopefully speak about and share in that time that's elapsed. But before we get into all of that good stuff, if you wouldn't mind just letting everybody know who you are, what you do, and a quick origin story of your journey.
Sure. Before all that, I just want to say I don't mean to pressure Aaron here. Like, I think it's cool that we had this anticipation going to, and like we had art timestamp it through Discord when we meant to do it when we finally did it.
Yes.
So yeah. So I'm Miguel. I'm a concept artist for the past almost 10 years in the industry. Before that, I was a graphic designer for another 10 years. And yeah, I really get excited about art design, planting seeds from briefs into ideas, getting them raised from the abstract, cultivating them through art, storytelling, things like that, making them happen and communicating them through games and films, anything that's entertainment. It really gets me excited. Um, I started on Lens Square. Actually, I did not start on Lens Square. I started self-taught, looking at YouTube videos and things like that. But my most meaningful stepping stone was probably Learn Squared when I took the Alex Figini course and other courses there. I think the Alex Figini was the one that had ZBrush sci-fi character design, which was really what I wanted to do already at some point, where I wanted my portfolio and personal art to go. So it kind of just stars aligned and it fell into place. And I downloaded the course and invested a lot on it. And from there, it was actually cool. It took off. I did a few projects around that. By the time I finished them, Cyberpunk started to be trending. By CD Projekt Red, I started to get some emails from a variety of studios who wanted to get on board on the trend, and it kind of was like a luck in a way that I had
Hmm.
a whole portfolio ready of what the industry wanted. It's kind of funny because back then people told me to not do cyberpunk, not do sci-fi for some
Mm.
reason. It's kind of weird trend going around. I think it was because photo wash started to get also a trendy technique. There was a weird miasmic stigma associated with it that you did not need much skill. It was like kind of bad that you used photo wash. So maybe it was from there. But yeah, that's me. I'm a concept artist. That's what I do.
Cool. It's interesting you mentioned there as well, and I think with a lot of people, like we spoke before offline as well, like we discovered the Learn Squared platform as creatives, I think around about the same time. And
Mm,
it's interesting you mentioned there, like it wasn't your start, so to speak. And what I mean by that is the industry is old enough now where around the time platforms like Learn Squared started, which was like 2015, and around that time, I think people like ourselves and people who were journeying around creatively before that, there wasn't really a place. So people were kind of like
mm,
hopping around trying to figure out things. Yet there were also a generation where when they first discovered that this is a job they wanted to do, or the kind of work, or there's like a way to train to do this, that was almost the genesis of their creative journey. So almost the knowledge was already there as well. Am I right in assuming that you're the former? So you were kind of like moving around a little bit before things started to
that's
align?
true. I almost forgot about that. The thing is, like, I shouldn't have, I shouldn't forget about it, but it seems like it was a lifetime ago that happened, that there was like
Mm,
this lack of direction especially on the self-taught spectrum of artists, where to go, where to get this knowledge. And Learn Square just kind of stepped into there and filled that gap, at least for me and many others that I know that got a lot out of it. Before that, I was just watching YouTube videos and posting on Facebook groups, seeking critique, feedback from online communities like that. It was not very successful, honestly. You could get anything: good feedback, bad feedback, weird feedback. Uh,
mm,
so Learn Square was really the structure. I'm glad that it happened and it came about. I think it helped a lot.
mm.
Not just me, but everyone who wanted some
Myself
direction.
included. Bias
Yes.
aside, take my Learn Square job to one side. Even for myself, like very similar to your journey, it was all over the place. Didn't really know what I was good at and what I could do, and were my skills valid enough, and that kind of validated things for me, gave me a structure, like you said, and showed that, oh yeah, no, I've found my groove. And obviously things change, and countless people I've spoken to, not only on the podcast but offline as well, and even members in the communities when Learn Square was coming up. Like, yeah, it's everyone kind of, even though everyone's got their own journey, there was a common trend of like what you just said, like people had that kind of aha moment, or things really just clicked and they were allowed to flourish. What was your, I guess, your art journey prior to that? And it's interesting that you mentioned that as well. And I've been in the same boat where like there's almost like a prehistory to that kind of things, and I've forgotten certain things too. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, I did put a lot of mileage into that, or I did do that as well. Oh, that's a valuable skill that I learned. I want to know that kind of prehistory. What was that like? Was it definitely like universe, like the history of the universe, a lot of floating nebula gases and all sorts of stuff, or was it a lot more adventurous?
It was the spiraling consciousness of the universe that led me. No, um, I guess from before concept art, I was doing mostly graphic design, and I went to high school and then college around multimedia art and design. And I never really knew much of what I wanted to do. I was just going through classes and okay, today we learn how to do logo design, and now we know how to do video clips or a bit of 3D, a bit of everything. So it was kind of mostly falling into graphic design, and that was cool. I got to do some art related stuff, like a logo has some art on it, I suppose. But it wasn't until I was like mid college that I already had some foundation of life drawing and things like that. That I saw these, what is it called? Bartley. I think you had him on a podcast
Yes.
recently, and Eva Shantara. I saw their robots photo washing and digital painting. I was like, that is cool. I want to do something like that. I don't want to design yogurt stamps and and branding and stuff like that. And yeah, I tried to get my career stifled into that.
Mm,
Looking back, I don't think it was that bad to do graphic design. Now I kind of like it a little bit more. I do it
hmm
sometimes like as a side project for helping some some friends who needs like to promote his surf school or skate project or things like that while doing concept art as well. So does that answer your question? Sometimes I get like sidetracked or talk circles and
It's all
like
good. It's all good. No, it does, and I'm totally good to sidetracked as well. It's totally fine. Two great artists that you mentioned there, great examples. That's quite interesting as well because I think for me, and I think for a lot of people as well, for similar journey to yourself, like it, I didn't. I knew I wanted to work in the same industry on IPs and stuff, mainly for
mm,
movies, but I never worked on a movie yet. But it has been mainly games. Um, but even then, I didn't know how to specifically get there. I did transport design, and a
mhm,
lot of people that I know did similar kind of like industrial design routes or like graphic design or even something
mm,
completely different. But one, I guess, the gateway that led me into the industry, similar to yourself, was other people's artwork. For myself, it was like Daniel Simon, and
mhm,
he was a real world designer, if you want to put it that way, who made stuff
mhm.
for movies. And obviously, his Cosmic Motors book was like, this is like in weird image form rather than anyone explaining it. Just seeing that showed me straight away that this is what I want to do, this is what I need to do. So was it the same case for yourself? Was it more seeing other people's artwork and what's possible creatively? Was that what led you on the path, or did you kind of have a sense of what you really wanted to do even early on, if that makes sense?
That's interesting. It's kind of like I see your line of thought there because Daniel Simon is has this industrial background, same as you, right? So
Mm.
did you kind of see like I sort of come from the same background as him, so maybe I can bridge that gap
Yeah,
and do the
it was
same stuff. Yeah.
it was someone who had already trod the path and I could see which way to go.
Mm. So it's kind of like low key mentor or without
1,000,000%.
in
Yes,
a
yes,
passive way. Yeah.
yes.
Um, I don't think I ever had anyone like that. Someone who was a graphic designer. There's plenty of concept artists who were graphic designers,
Uh-huh.
but I couldn't really tell they were graphic designers. That thing was not there. It was not as obvious as Daniel Simon does
Mm,
this industrial design, and you ended up doing spaceships, so it kind of relates. But to me, it was not a discipline, but it was like the storytelling that I lived outside of the role of what I learned in school or something. I've always, in my robots, I've always been drawn to tattoos, piercings, things, subculture elements, because I
mm,
found they had this graphic power to make things stand out and people react to the character and things like that. So it's more like a personal storytelling that I wanted to bring out rather than something that I learned at school at specific discipline.
mhm,
You ended up doing these spaceships because you saw Daniel Simon doing them. But I ended up doing like mechs with 4 arms because I've always liked the Shiva deity in Hindu
right.
mythology. There's something more primordial, I think, that
Interesting.
since a kid, I've also always been drawn to archaeology, the things that are mysterious. So I brought that up through character design, through concept art. It wasn't specifically something I learned at school, but something that was already with me, I believe, and that
Cool.
I cultivate.
I love it. That's it. That's super interesting. So this was kind of like, would you say like there's stuff that you've kind of always been interested in then? Like these things, this interest was already there, and it just slowly manifested to what it is now.
Yeah, I believe that's fair to say. That's probably why I was not too bored when people told me that I should not do sci-fi or cyberpunk stuff because I already wanted to tell my stories through that medium, regardless
Hmm.
of the industry needing them or not. And I wanted to bring them out. So and eventually, someone appreciated them through freelance. So wasn't that bad. But yeah, I think that always
Cool.
been inside of me to bring out, and yeah, brought it eventually.
I want to dig into that a little bit deeper soon. But the first question that I have is, and I think it's an interesting point that you touched upon there, is you were advised, and I'm sure like the intentions were good to not do something else and just
Hmm.
sorry to do something else and just instead you focus on cyberpunk. Um, for people that are coming up now who are in that state of mind, we're thinking like maybe they're on the crossroads, not sure what guidance to take, what they should do. Um, Building a portfolio, knowing how to market yourself and what to tap into can be a bit of a daunting topic or a minefield,
Uh-huh.
and you just learn along the way. But what would you advise? So if someone is maybe set in a way of doing something or they really want to do something, but they're hearing this advice not to do it, what would you advise them?
Mm, that's interesting. I mean, uh, I would advise them to. Um, mm, That's interesting because look, going back, people who gave me that advice, it was not that they were wrong. I can tell you that one of them was Feng Zhu that I met in Paris in one convention, and I don't know more than Feng Zhu does. Like I don't think many, like most people don't know. Like he was like probably one of the grandfathers of concept art. So it was not like I was trying to challenge him. It was more
Mm-hmm.
like I already had an indie job, so I wanted to experiment on the side, and I was more worried to see if it would work rather than if it should work. Like if
Mm-hmm.
it's going to work rather than expecting it not to work. And I was doing it because I like it to do it. And I think even though it sounds kind of corny and cliche, I think just because I really, really wanted to do it, I think people connected with that a lot more than other cyberpunk sci-fi concept art that was going around at the time and the stories itself. Um, it probably relates that I watched an Instagram reel today where Snoop Dogg was on a podcast and he was saying something like, I don't remember it verbatim, but it was something like, I only have this much money, I have this much stuff because I love rap more than I love money. And that's why I have it. And it's kind of the same thing, kind of relates. It's only because I really wanted to do this art, really wanted to do these concepts that people also like it in the end. I wasn't trying
Mm-hmm.
to be liked or to have likes on social media or something like that. I was just expressing something that I really wanted to express. And I think intention matters. Like if there's any advice, like ask yourself your intentions about what you want to do and the kind of themes you want to make. Is it because you truly believe from an intuitive point of view that you should tell this story, then you should go ahead. And even if no one likes it, at least you got that out for yourself because you also have to do stuff for yourself, not just other people. And if you really want to play it safe, do some stuff for yourself, some stuff a little bit more commercial and safe. Uh, to touch again, like in Feng Zhu, he has a way of calibrating his work, his students' work in his school, and it's all very production oriented, very commercial and safe. It's not like it's bad or anything. It is what the industry asks for the most part. But I wanted to and not just be an employee. I wanted to have my own voice as well. And but probably that's what I'd advise. That sure, do production work, do the safe stuff, but explore something on the side for yourself and be open-minded that your ideas are good enough to transcend that and contaminate that structure and make it work for you.
Love it. That is music to my ears in terms of like just from a creative to a creative. Like I personally think I don't even think it's like necessary or essential, but it's something I'm drawn to when there's that conviction there and almost unwavering. Sometimes maybe it can become like a bad thing, and
Hmm.
I've had those experiences where I'm like, I wish I just did the safe stuff rather than like stick to your guns kind of thing. But there's something I value for that as well. But with that said, did you have any moments where you thought I should have not played it safe, so to speak, but maybe gone the direction that the kind of advice that you were given?
Mm, well, yeah, for sure. Like those thoughts were always there. I think I self-doubt a lot. Like
Right.
this unwavering confidence you were talking about, it could have been also recklessness from being
Yeah.
younger and like not wanting to do what other people tell me and being a bit more rebellious in my approach and do my own stuff. But I do play it safe. I think about playing it safe. Sometimes I think maybe I should do an environment design just because I have too many characters, but I have so many ideas about characters that I want to portray. It's like, I'll just do another character. But I do play it safe and I do think about my career as well. But
Hmm.
mostly I've been fortunate that I don't have to because I keep getting rewarded by what I want to do. And most of the work that comes to me, it's personal stuff that I did, regardless of being production oriented or commercial. So I just keep doing more of that.
Hmm.
But it's a good point that to explore. Maybe I should explore it a lot more in the future. Like who knows if I do something more like an environment and five vehicle designs, and then maybe I'll have a lot more clients coming into the door. It's definitely possible. So so I think it's both. Like safe, but also don't forget why you were excited to join the industry and to do this kind of work.
Mm. Very well put. Um, Obviously, you mentioned there like your, I guess, main body of work and what you showcase is characters. Um, how has that journey been? Like focusing and specializing in that particular realm, and even though maybe from the outside, because it's easy to kind of like categorize things and put them in boxes and sections, environments, characters,
Hmm.
vehicles, and what have you. But even in each of their own, there's a lot of nuance, there's a lot of variety you can go down, not only in style but in terms of design choice, execution,
No,
themes, and what have
thanks.
you. How would you um how do you kind of see that? Do you see yourself as doing only one specific thing, or is it something that just enables you to just explore how you want to explore? That makes sense.
You mean like if I think that I'd like to be just a character design guy? Is that what you're asking? Or
Um, Not quite like so. Yeah. So let's say with characters, I guess the better question is characters enough for you? Do you feel like you
oh,
want to do other stuff, or is characters is that enough for you to kind of like get your creative rocks off?
mm, so when I started out, I was doing mostly props when I was a junior artist. I joined it in this indie studio in Sweden called Frictional Games. They were known for a media series, some horror games. And when I joined, I did a lot of everything. I did environments, characters, props, and actually, I was a junior, but in the practicality sense of things, I was more like a principal because I did a bit of everything, and I was the only artist there for a while. And because I was doing so many props there, because there was a lot of set dressing and mood for those kind of games. Uh, on my spare time, I had to do characters to contrast. But my roadmap was to do a few characters and maybe environments because I was still working on my portfolio on the side. At this point, I was just exploring, taking more courses and more tutorials. So I never meant to just do characters, but it kind of ended up that way. I started getting emails later from NetEase, then Archetype by Wizards of the Coast, and Embark Studios, then EA, and it always character oriented. So I was like, I guess I'll just keep doing more characters. And but I'd like to do in the future something that's not. character oriented. I already have some keyframes as well that got me into some film stuff,
Hmm.
maybe gun designs, things like that. The plan is always to be to branch out to other stuff, not to be the character guy, but the guy who just designs.
Hmm.
Though there's only 24 hours in a day, 8 of which you work, and then yeah, then you have a job as well. So it hasn't been possible. But maybe in the future, like I'm playing with this idea of environment, a series of environment designs as well on my free time. Maybe that will come out soon enough and change the spectrum a little bit.
Cool. Um, what do you enjoy the most about the creative process?
Um, there's different parts about what I enjoy in the process. I enjoy the initial parts where I'm just researching, looking at a lot of mood boards, photo reference. I'm scrolling to Pinterest, Tumblr, Google Images, things like that, getting books off my shelf, and just like I think it's like the whole spectrum of possibilities is so early on, like nothing set in stone, and I have a brief, but it can branch out in a lot of incremental ways, like details, shape language, things like that. That's very exciting because ideas just start to flow and run endlessly. I go to bed and like I have flashbacks of images of possible ideas in my head for this character and details. And I almost want to get out of bed and just start sketching. Um, then the research parts of just organizing the whole brief and linking stuff. I do a lot of mind maps, as I saw Ashtor doing that in one of his courses, John
Hmm.
English too, from Illustration Academy. So that's to me the most boring part that I don't like a lot. It's
Mm.
like the sketching a list of keywords and design thinking. I don't like it, but every time I do it, the project ends up a lot better. So
Yes.
I keep doing it, that research part. And then by the end on the illustration, I can just relax and chill and just paint the details. And that's also nice. So I enjoy different parts of the process in different ways.
Mm.
And they complement each other a bit as
Do you
well.
have a favorite part, or do you like it as a whole?
Mm, that's a good question. It feels like you're asking me which part of the day I like the most between morning, day, and night because I like there's different aspects of it. Um, I think where I like the least is the design thinking part, but I also see it as the most valuable because it stands out. When I don't do it, it just ends up something generic. Then when I do it, I think I like it when almost close to the final product, things are starting to be fit into place like pieces of a puzzle. And I start to get a clear sense of how it's going to end up with. And especially when something comes like a detail or an extra idea I have for a feature of the character, and it just pushes it to 10 percent plus in real estate in the image, just pushes it to another level. That's, I think, my favorite part of the process. Like the muse comes and just makes it work at the end. Um, just be just before finishing it, and almost while I'm finishing it is like I think when I enjoy it the most. And that's a good question. I never really thought about it in that way.
Mm. Yeah, no, it's true. Like, I guess if you're hungry and you make you cook in your meal, obviously the best part is eating it, hopefully. But then
Mm,
there's certain stages where you're like, I have to do this to this, that to this, and that to this. And sometimes it can be fun, sometimes it can be a bit tedious. Some parts you know that like if I get this right, it's gonna be delicious. If I get it wrong, it's
mhm.
gonna taste like crap. But yeah, no, there's
That's
like
a great analogy.
there's also like an interesting part about the creative process as well, where like your mood and the way you approach things impacts the final thing a lot. Do you have any like kind of I guess tales with that as well? Like, do you have any kind of like war stories of where certain projects you've maybe struggled with, or you found that some are just super successful because of your state of mind?
Mm, sorry, could you repeat that? Like that
Yeah,
last part
sure.
get out.
So like, do you find that your mind state and your mental state and the way you approach things, whether that's how you approach the project, or maybe even the way the project's going, maybe how you would normally solve things is not working the way it should work, for example, and it's maybe being a bit tricky. Do you find that your approach to things can affect how the project works and how the outcome is?
You mean as in my own personal process, bringing it into a specific client
Yeah,
process
or even
that we
like
already
personal
have?
stuff, just more like the way you approach, like say, like any design task or any project task. Um, I guess maybe a better way to ask is, it's been a long day for me, so forgive me. Is, do you find that there's certain maybe mental states or mind states or even times of the day where you
Oh,
produce work better than others?
mm, yeah, I get it. I think that yes, there's. It's weird that it's almost before I go to bed. Like I've decided to go to bed, and then just ideas start flowing like that. Not just ideas, the process, the flow of the pen, everything just clicks. It's not just that. It's almost like I have a deadline set for myself, and things just work. Like if I know I only have 1 hour and I'm meeting a friend in an hour or something like that, and I don't can't afford to have much time to work on this, that is just it just works better. I don't know why. It's just like having that pressure, I
Mm,
guess, works in a positive way. Because if I know that I'll just have to live in a bit, that it's almost like no, I don't, and it just starts working. I'm not sure why that is, and the mysticism behind the
hmm
reasons of why that works. But if I have the, as I sometimes do as freelancer, um, if I don't have a client at the moment, or if I'm waiting for feedback and I have a lot of free time in between, and then I am not as productive or as creative than if I have like a schedule or something pressuring in between. If I have a lot
hmm
of free time, then I just rot. Honestly, I don't know why that is.
Interesting. I'm the same, and it's something that
Really?
I wish it was the opposite. But there is something about the pressure, that kind of like metaphorical gun to your head. Or
Yeah.
like in the movies, you gotta like cut the right colored wire and the bomb's about to explode, kind of thing. Obviously, like you said, like it's hard to figure out or dissect it, but let's attempt. Why do you think that is?
Um. So let's solve this mystery of the universe for not just ourselves but everyone listening. Um, I think just if I will have to take a guess, it's because you don't have much time to fool around with the process, and you just intuitively go to what works. It's
Mhm.
if you have less possibilities or less resources like time to spend in this, then you're going to be more mindful of the time and resources you have to spend. And you know that you cannot go and sculpt something in ZBrush in 1 hour and then take it to Photoshop and paint on top, or like to keyshot and render. So you're probably just going to use Photoshop for this one task and just paint. And because you're using all your energy and inspiration on this one channel, it's just going to manifest better in more
Mhm.
efficiency and economically speaking. That's just my guess. I don't know.
Mhm.
Why do you think that is?
I th- I think it's more like similar to what you just said. Like it's the fact that your mind has realized, or your brain, or whatever the control center is, has realized that we have no more options left. We have to get this done. If it doesn't get done, then mission has failed. So these are the
Mm,
resources that we have. Let's tap into them and let's just get something out there. And usually I think it's like, and I also think that that's also maybe that kind of like, what do we call it? The Zen state or the focus state, where you just get into that
The
mode
flow
where you don't
state.
even, yeah, flow state. That's the one. I probably got 100 more attempts wrong before I found out it was flow state. But yeah, like I think that's what flow state is. It's like everything aligns. It's complete efficiency. Distractions switch off. The task is figured out, and you do it. And I think there's also something interesting as well, where when you have time or when you have the options, you can fall into the trap of overthinking things, and even things that, yes, maybe they can be improved, but the improvement is not going to make that much of a difference, but yet we still waste time on it. That can also derail you and all that kind of stuff as well. Whereas, yeah, like when there's an urgency to it, you just get it done, and then you can focus on, or maybe you kind of figure out like, okay, this is the way we're going to solve this puzzle, and let's just see what happens. I guess it's just nature being efficient. Have you ever been able to hack into that and get yourself into that intentionally, that space, or have you even tried?
I used to, well, yeah, yeah. Now that I think of it, I think the keyword here is focus, that we just
Mm-hmm.
get focus into it. And I used to um, do these lunch crunch sketches in between my job. And I knew that I only had 1 hour. I'll release a tutorial, do something very productive, and I'll just get it done and get it done well, because I did not have much space to get it wrong, because I used simple tools, simple processes. I knew the direction. As you say, you don't have a lot of space to be very ambitious. And I guess you stick to your comfort zone a little bit, if you will. It's not quite comfort zone, but you stick to what you know, and you're not 200% ambitious, and start to think about, oh, maybe in this environment design, I could have also a level design itself, and then a mood piece, and then break down the props and things like that. And that's cool to think that, but it also can get into a downward spiral of endless ideas and planning, and you don't get a lot done, instead of just focusing on doing one thing and doing one thing well. And I think that that was it when I was working on a full-time job, and I had like 1 hour lunch. I would come and have this specific thing, or when I was in between waiting for feedback and I did not have much time, and I did not even know how much time I had. I just tried to get it done quick, and I'll just not even think about what to do. I'll just do it, as in flow and focus. So I think, yeah, not having, there were times where I did not have a lot of time to think
Mm-hmm.
what to do, and I just went ahead and do it without. It's not like you're recklessly doing something, but more like from intuition about what you already know and who you are, and bringing that into the table. I think that might have been why I was so insistent, now that I think back of it, on doing cyberpunk and sci-fi as personal work, because I just also wanted to focus on it.
Mm-hmm.
It could be related there, on sticking to the things you know rather than
Mm-hmm.
doing something else. Um,
No, I can definitely relate to that. Again, looking back as well, like there's so many things I want to do. Yeah, I keep defaulting to this subject matter
have you
that
tried to make a schedule to activate that flow state, or
um
something like that?
I think my brain is wired very differently.
Mm,
So, for example, if I'm working for you or I'm working for a client or whatever, if there's a certain amount of tasks that need to be done, I will be very good at doing them. I will knock them out of the park. I'll do them perfectly.
mm,
I think for me, because it's not my task, it's their task, and they've asked me to help. Like me being able to fulfill that is very important for me, even more than the financial reward at the end of it or what have you. I don't want to be the guy, although that has been the case where that has happened. I don't want to be the one or the reason this task has failed because I didn't finish it. Um, but for myself, for some reason, I've tried it. But like you mentioned before, like with the brainstorming example you gave, um, I have I love doing that, but I get a bit too carried away. And then I've just found a way to kind of do it mentally as I go along. And it's kind of like lives there in an abstract way. It's easy for me to say that without proving it. But yeah, I've just
I,
realized I got
I
like this
totally
kind of
believe you.
I've just got like two ways, I guess, of approaching. Like I got two hemispheres, or I think in Macs, what did they used to call boot camp or something, where you can have Windows and Mac OS on the
Mm,
same system. It's kind of like that. Like if it's for somebody who's asked for help, like all hands on deck. I'm the model employee. But if it's for myself, knowing that I've got a kind of like, I guess, a limited control over what needs to be done. The way I think get things done, however, with that said, is I just need to find what the goal is, what the purpose is, and just get close to that as possible. And then that's when the job's done.
mm.
So basically, I'm very abstract and very strange.
Yeah, I find that's relatable, honestly, because some of the best work I do is also for clients when there's like specific focus. Maybe because I'm not sure if that happens to you, because I'm not as attached to the emotionally to the creative brief. I see it more like
Mm-hmm.
a task,
Mm-hmm.
something that I almost have to do, like uh, as if I was a Marine or something
Mm.
that they deploy. Is
Yes.
like, I do, you want me to do this? Sure, I'll do it. Rather
Yes.
than a personal work is more like self-discovery also as an element, and like this kind of like portfolio development. And this could be a step to my career in a different way, things like that. Would you think that's something that also happens to you in the process, or?
Oh, for sure, man. I think we're like somehow hacked into each other's brains. What you just said then, like personal versus your own versus someone else's. Like there is an urgency, but there is no deadline for me to get my personal stuff. I almost like treat my personal work, although I do a fair bunch of it, and all my portfolio is consistent of personal work. I treat it more like a hike or like a walk in nature and just enjoy the scenery versus client work, which is heading into the city, get the fastest route, do the commute, do the 9 to 5, and then come back. So yeah, I think for me, in that case, then my personal work is as much therapeutic and meditative as it is a mission, so to speak. Um, for yourself, do you have any missions with your personal work?
Oh, good one. Um, I guess I'm always on the background. I shouldn't, because that's the antithesis of why I started to get clients and traction. But nowadays, I'm on the background thinking, what does the industry need? So finally, I'll go back and listen to the Feng Zhu a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and what his philosophy was. And even though I want to do more characters and things that I'm excited about, I think like if I do maybe an environment design or a few vehicles, maybe I'll get something more out of my career. So mm, I'm not very sure. I'm exploring this environment design now for a personal project, but it's more like there is some kind of personal voice there, but there's also this safer element, as in I'm trying to mock up level design and break it down of why the environment is structured that way. It's not just like a mood piece
Mm-hmm.
rendered in Blender. It's more like have this whole the system of taking snapshots of the process and documenting along the way, almost like it's a book, and then releasing
Mm-hmm.
it. And here you can learn the decisions I took on level design, why I lit up the set this way, and get references and the references I got from books, things like that, and why the story is set up this way. Um, so it's a bit of both, I suppose. But does that touch the question?
Yeah, no, for sure, totally. Um, equally with your personal work, and I guess like no, better question would be is what you're doing now, because I've gone through the same kind of journey as well. Like it is people just wanting to hire me just for doing spaceships is dwindling to the point where it's like very, very minimal now. So it forces you to, for example, like how many documentaries have you seen where they show the predator encroaching into a human village to get prey versus where the normal habitat is because there's no food there anymore, or they venture further out kind of thing. It's this kind of same thing. It's like, okay, fair enough. At this moment in time, this isn't sustainable. So what other skills do I have to tap into? So it's natural kind of progression into like, okay, well, I can start doing what I do with my main thing and these kind of things and see if I can branch out and just attract more clients, right? Like say a flower that's meant to pollinate, it just pulls out its petals, but you can kind of grow different petals on the same flower, if that makes sense. So a lot of it's more to do with that. And it sounds like you're kind of doing the same thing. But now that you're doing it now at this stage in your career, if you attempted that at the beginning, when you were getting that kind of advice where you were trying to, if you basically went to a different route and said, okay, I'm going to put the cyberpunk to maybe one side or that kind of thing I want to do, and I'm going to try and do all these things, then do you think it would have worked successfully back then? Or did you have to go for the journey you've gone through now and be able to tackle it how you can tackle it now?
Like if I listen to the feedback I gotten instead of doing my own thing.
Yeah, I guess, but more so like right now, like you said, like you're going to try and do like the environments and maybe some keyframes,
Huh.
but there's the way you're doing it. Do you think you would have approached what you're doing now and the way you're doing it back then?
Um, well, I don't think I would. I don't think I would because I there's just a culmination of knowledge and experience that goes along the way with each character that I make or each concept, whether it's a character or something else. There's always a challenge that I want to get. So if I find that my silhouettes are not as strong, then on the next project I'll work. I don't do a project just for that, but on the next project I'll make a note just to make that better. And by the
Mm-hmm.
end of that project, I noticed that okay, now I got the silhouettes better, but the second read is just not as strong. So I make a project to address that. Then I find that the color balance or the composition and quantity and contrast is not as great as it can be. So there's at each project there's this spotlight that shines that tells me that okay, you got that done, but now move to this other thing. It's kind of like it reveals in itself as every work I do. And going back to it, I don't think I would have the same process years ago, or
Mm-hmm.
because it's just a culmination of things I learn, and
Mm-hmm.
it goes from the creation of it to even the display of how I layer the case study and the work and how I document it. I did not used to even document anything. I'll just follow a tutorial and just kind of trying to do my best and then learn from it. And the
Mm-hmm.
lessons I'll take to the next project. But going back all the way, I just, I have, no, that's, I would not do it the same way, probably.
Mm-hmm. And why document the process? Is it more a personal choice or is it a strategic choice?
Yeah, good question. Why would you do that to yourself? Because it's painful. Uh, I think it's that over time I learned that people like to see the process in case studies. They like to see how things were done. So it helps them to see if I post just a character, they may or may not stumble upon it. And by they, I mean a client, and they may or may not hire you. But I've gotten a lot of positive feedback for posting my mood boards, posting my mind maps, even, and questions about why I do those things. It happens like on almost every interview or meeting I have, like people ask about it. And I think that's a trigger to get people more engaged and involved with the work. And not just clients, but I have like people wanting to sign up to mentorships or asking me things, buying my tutorials, things like that, because I guess it gives also people a little bit of something that you have to offer for free. So if I'm doing level design on environment design, which is not something that you usually see on ArtStation, you usually just see the final piece. But if I break down the screenshots that I blocked out in Maya and draw arrows about why the level design would work in this way, that's something that no one's addressing there in their posts, and people would just like it to save it for later or just share it around in the studio, and that's a strategic thing too. Um, and from documenting it, that's one reason. and I find that things integrate a lot better, and I start to understand my own process a lot better.
Hmm.
I can release a tutorial if I want to out of it with, uh, and I won't have to rewind about the decisions I took and why I took them. I already have them documented there. And
Hmm.
maybe also because I just, maybe I don't like myself that much and I put myself through it. It's just, sometimes it feels very tiring.
I can
But yeah,
imagine. I can imagine because like creating something in itself is an energy consuming task, but documenting it in a way that, especially doing it for yourself, for example, I have a notepad on me at all times. The way I make notes is somehow only I can understand, and I struggle with that as well. But for someone else to read it, it would just be foreign. It's like nonsense. So to do it in a cohesive way that's understandable for someone else, that's also a lot of work as well. And obviously, as we know with Learn Squared and stuff, like tutorials, crafting them isn't a walk in the park. Like there's a lot of work that goes into it, a lot of
oh
curation,
yes.
a lot of all that. But it's a good journey, but it's something that you have to put a lot of care and effort into as well. What led you towards that path? Like why share your knowledge? Was it something that you wanted to do? Was it based on just people asking you for stuff, or is something deeper perhaps?
Mm, I think it was about some years ago when ArtStation opened a marketplace. I thought about that and what would I have to offer. And I started to
Mm,
upload first my keyshot materials that I made for my projects. And then eventually, I think I uploaded like five materials. People started buying them. And I was like, all right, what else do I have to offer?
right.
And I started to think back at questions I had about the industry and how could I cover them. I started to get tutorials out and resources out that I wish I had when I was like years ago. Wish I had stumbled upon. So I got that out and also started to get positive feedback. I think I even have one about level design, which made it to like top 10 level tutorials on ArtStation in like 2021, 22. Now it doesn't sell a whole lot, but at the time it was like a
Right.
small victory for me. Um, so I guess I've learned that the more you give, the more you get.
Hmm.
So I just started to want to give a lot more to people, and paradoxically, you get out of people without really asking or trying to get out anything from anyone. People just, if you want likes on your project, you just break down the process and make it useful for people. Like they'll like it to save it for later and they'll share it around the studio where they work. Like, hey, we could use this. This could be useful. Actually, I think that's the Wizards of the Coast job that I got for archetype. I think they stumbled upon my blog posts on
Right.
character design. So I made a blog post telling people, teaching people the decisions and why I think makes character design good. And I was not, it was a free resource for anyone to look and read. And I guess people share it around their studios too and like it. And then just you get more out of it without really expecting or asking it. So I started to do more of that, honestly.
I mean, when you think about it, it is like it makes sense why the process, especially for creatives, like is super important. We're always trying to like decode what an artist has done, how they got to the steps. I'm
Mhm.
sure I'm speaking for a lot of people as well. Like the final image is amazing, but we always are more interested in the steps taken to get to the final image, more so we can try and get to this same result as well.
Yeah,
Um, our favorite IPs, some of my favorite ways of appreciating IPs is just the making of the way things were made, the
exactly.
energy put into it. I speak to death about Lord of the Rings, but even remember
Hmm.
growing up, just seeing little like promotional videos. This is before obviously internet age of Jurassic Park, how they use animatronics and then
Hmm.
CGI. Just little things like that you just latch onto and you think, wow, it's amazing. Um, why? So, with that said, which artists either that you've seen breakdowns of, or would you like to see breakdowns of that would help you?
That's an interesting question, an interesting thing you shared. Thanks for that because Also, in Lord of the Rings, I remember I just had flashbacks now as you were speaking about Lord of the Rings and the breakdowns and making offs from Weta Workshop when I was like 10 or 11, something like that.
Mm.
And that's always stuck with me as well. So that does not only help you, but it helps them make themselves stand out in the industry as well.
Yes.
And so breakdowns are super useful, even because if you like the final image, you want to know more about the final image, even if you're not wanting to work in the industry. So um, some of my most liked posts or people who engage with the most are like the final character and then the block out in Marvelous Designer, and they're like, "Oh, okay, that's crazy how you got the realism in between." Like they fill in the gaps on the process in
Mm.
their own minds of how you take one from the other, and that's almost it's more than just making the final out there because you give them this journey through your own process. It's not just an image that you send out and they see it, look at it, and then just go do something else and watch cat videos on
Yes.
Instagram. It's like an image that they see the final, they see it backwards of how it works, and you reverse engineer things with them, and you take them on this journey that they appreciate a lot more. Um, the behind the scenes process, I'd like to see. Hmm, that is I think a lot of people do tutorials nowadays. So a lot of artists I was looking to get that kind of information out, like Ashtor. I got this course. Like Shara, Alex Higini. Most people have tutorials as well.
Hmm.
So mm, it's tough, but I would say, huh, I've been drawn to other industries, like the masterclass series that they have out now that you can learn from Hans Zimmer how to make music and
Hmm.
from chefs how to cook. It's interesting to see how they become masters in their own craft. And it was not until I saw this masterclass from David Carson. For those who don't know, he's like the most Googled graphic designer in the world.
Right. Okay.
So he did a lot of stuff for surf brands, skate as well, and he basically was the father of grunge when it comes to graphic design. And starting to see or to learn his own process about how he approaches color and shape helped me a whole lot in my concept art work as well. Like I brought all of this way to communicate ideas and messages through abstract symbols and images and motifs and colors, and how color can different colors can communicate a specific message. And he really gets granular about this color next to this color and with this shape communicates a different message than this one mix of abstract shapes. It's almost a language on
Hmm.
itself that develops like English, Portuguese, Indian, something like that. So a lot of breakdowns from other industries do help me in ways I wasn't expecting. Um, but unfortunately, if you know any good artists yourself that you'd like to see breakdowns of that you can help me with, because most of my favorite artists I saw how they do things.
First of all, I'm glad you mentioned other industries. That for me, I believe, is the ultimate cheat code. Even if you're from a
Mm,
non-art industry, look at artists. If you're from an art industry, look at other. I find them as creative industries. But that's what I would recommend. I would like always say, look at the most thing that's departed from yourself or that seems most alien to you. That if you were to approach it, you'd think I'd never know how to do that. Then when you watch them do their thing, you'd realize that their process is almost very identical to our processes. The conversations
mm,
they have, the battles they have, the problem solving they go through is almost the same steps that we go through as well. It's like looking at a parallel universe, but it's the same kind of rule, so to speak. The masterclass one, for example, have you seen the Hans Zimmer one?
No, I haven't. I have seen them in like listed, but I have not took that one yet. No, I know
So
it exists though.
I
Have you
haven't.
taken? Did you take it?
So yeah, I watched that one. So I haven't seen many of them. I've watched it for a few years. One of my side hobbies, it's as old as, say, maybe not as old, but it's over 20 years old at least, is beat making music and the whole craft of that.
Oh, cool.
So hence Hans Zimmer was a big one. Timbaland was another one as well. He's someone I idolized growing up. And there's a few others that don't stick in my brain too much, but specifically Hans Zimmer. His scores are iconic, especially in Hollywood and blockbuster films. John Williams is probably the one that you could say is the king of blockbuster scores. There's also Thomas Newman, who I think is probably, I'd say, superior. But then there's Hans Zimmer, who came out obviously with his Nolan films and now Villeneuve films and a few others as well. Like, he's got a very impressive discography. So I was very
He does stuff
curious.
for games as well a lot.
Which ones has he done? I wasn't aware of that.
Uh, he's done stuff for Ashfall, I believe.
Cool. I gotta check that out.
I know it because it's a game I worked on, honestly. But,
Okay, cool.
so I know he's a bit on the games industry.
So I was very curious.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, of course, that's fine. I was very curious to his approach and how he would do things. And sometimes you always go in, okay, there's like some people who are very methodical, like very precise. It's almost like Walter White chemistry. So I was like, okay, yes, there's a certain process to certain things. The way he spoke about music and the way he spoke about coming up with themes and motifs, what have you, he purely spoke from narrative terms and emotion terms. So I remember specifically he was talking about, because he did Pirates of the Caribbean and Jack Sparrow's theme. And he literally saying a sentence, and he finishes a sentence with a piece of music and then continues the conversation. So his masterclass is more of a conversation,
cool,
rather than this is what key to use, this is what chord to use. So it's all like almost vibes purely. But he's saying things like, if you look at the character Jack Sparrow, like, he's mischievous. He's the hero, but not like a proper hero.
Yeah.
He's not noble. He's a pirate. So the way he, like, just a few notes and things like that as well. And he's someone also that's one side. So the approach is great. The approach is fine. What I always also latch into is people's passion for their craft, and the way he's speaking, the way you could tell, like, he's just geeking out about what he's doing. He could do this for another century or 1,000 years or millennia if he had the opportunity to. So that's the kind of stuff that I fully respect. And then other industries, like we mentioned sports earlier. There's a few, not so much players. There's some athletes that are really interesting because of the way they approach their craft. Obviously, it's maintaining fitness, maintaining focus, game state. You got that. If it's a competitive sport and you got an opponent, it's like that kind of the tactics that go into it, how you psych an opponent out, or almost win psychological warfare, so to speak. But then there's also like the management side, and how granular people get into things and how people motivate other people. And it's very, very, I'm just going to stop soon because I'll keep going, but it's very interesting. And one final one, which I always talk about,
don't stop, Mike. We're getting a lot out of this. Don't worry.
Is just chefs and cooks. There's this, what I don't remember his name, but I've seen a few videos of his. He makes soba noodles.
You can be very creative that as well, right?
Oh, totally, because it's so, like, movies are always described as like the ultimate art form because obviously so many things combined. I would put cooking on a similar kind of platform because, in simple terms, it's just about sustenance. It's about surviving. So it's a natural process to make a species survive and they can thrive. But through that and that importance, it's been given so much, like, importance, almost to a spiritual level, so to speak, like how much energy and care and people put into this thing that people can consume in a few minutes and they'll burp and just go away. But the craft that they put into it and how much they nerd out about it as well, like ingredient. My brother's, he's not a professional cook. I think he could be, but the way he talks about ingredients as well, I'm very lucky to be able to geek out about certain things with him and just observe like how he approaches things as well. So basically, to summarize, anyone that makes something, find out their process, even have it as a background. I'm sure all of us listen to stuff after you listen to this episode, of course. Have things in the background where you're listening to, watching long form content or whatever. Just get that stuff on there, because there's knowledge and there's steps that will either validate what you're doing and give you assurance, or even show you new ways to do things.
Absolutely. Just to add on to that, like just looking at ArtStation or concept art or the entertainment industry for inspiration and how people do it, like it's very limited. You just be looking at Star Wars and more
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars over and over. Like it's, I never took any Hans Zimmer master classes or those chefs yet, but as you speak about it, now I really want to, because there's also this under layer about this layer of processes that they understand how to make things in ways that you don't see it from the surface, but it's there. Like how to cook, like it's almost a spiritual experience, like an evolutionary need, and they know that and they use that to their advantage. And as you spoke about Hans Zimmer and how he was like talking, and then mid sentence he would just turn into music to describe Jack Sparrow. That's just it's so good, man. Like how they almost integrate different languages and speak about music in between speaking English and describing the process, and then it's almost like they alternate between what's
Mm-hmm.
their tool to express themselves or to keep teaching you that. And you have to like turn into the piano or whatever and
Mm-hmm.
then show Jack Sparrow to really get the sense of what he meant, because he could not describe it through English alone, I think. And that's something quite beautiful, like those layers and layers of the process that get intertwined. That's exciting for
And
sure.
what's super cool about it as well is like, this isn't like a Daniel Day-Lewis character. Like, this character's never going to win an Oscar, and it's something that's just meant to be like just like a popcorn, like that's going to do well at the box office. But these journeys that creatives go on, and the same goes with screenplay, same goes with scores, editing, obviously the concept art, the design, production, all of these kind of things. Just to know that and obviously for the average viewer, it's over their heads, and that's fine. That's what it's meant to be. Like, you're not supposed to notice these things. It's supposed to be like a sensory experience, as opposed to, unless it's like Psycho or Jaws, where it's meant to be like it's part of the act kind of thing.
Mhm.
Because I remember like going into that thinking, okay, I want to know about the Batman score and Inception, and almost those, I don't even remember what he said. The one that I latched onto was Jack Sparrow of all these things. And it's super important. And I love what you mentioned there about like alongside obviously like the food side of things as well, like even culture and entertainment, like that's been a big part of human existence as well. Like, it's become almost a key component. Again, like obviously I'm just throwing out there, I'm no archaeologist, although I love to talk about archaeology because you mentioned that at the beginning. Like human civilization, like things are stressful to survive, things get boring, so you need to have a bit of relief. And these art forms, the visual art form, and now obviously we use digital tools, but graphic design is probably as old as humanity itself. Even things that weren't
Yeah.
designed, like you would notice a tiger by its overall, I think that's how the brain works, right? It's just, it simplifies it to the most simplest thing it can do, and then it
Mhm.
attaches a meaning to it as well. I'm rambling, so I will definitely stop. But we mentioned earlier on, like your interest in archaeology. That's something that I was
Mhm.
fascinated as a kid and even till to this day. Is that still part of your creative process now?
Mm, I think it's a big part of me still, which happens to be a big part of the process. Like the process is an extension of myself, I find. Like if I go more into environment design, then maybe I can get more like to depict bygone worlds or things like that, something more Lovecraftian, and get
Mm.
really one-to-one reference about my love for archaeology. But I think the sheer unraveling of the mystery behind the creative brief, it's archaeology in itself, in a way, or it's like almost the same discipline. It's something that you don't know when you dig there. with your spade, it's an actual like mind map
Mm.
or mood board or something like that, and you start to get it out of there. I still love to travel and things like that to feed my creativity, but I don't find it a deliberate inspiration or like something that I think, oh yeah, archaeology is still a big part of this sci-fi character design that I'm making. No, but it's definitely part of me and what I bring into the art making process in ways that's not there, but still kind of there.
Mm.
Sure.
Um, what kind of things you mentioned? They're traveling. That's one of the best, I think, fuels for creative is just
Oh,
anything that
yeah.
just gives you new information that you've never seen before. What kind of, I guess, acts or things or places you can go to that are part of your creative process in terms of like just getting you inspired and even maybe part of solving design problems as well?
I don't want to be like reduction. I don't want to be like simplistic, but like just get out of the house
Mhm.
because like talk to people. Because if you're doing character design, how can you do a believable, engaging character design without talking to someone and really getting to know them and like on a deeper level other than the surface? It's like you want to be a poet, but you've never fallen in love. How's that going to work? You know, your work's not going to be as good. So traveling, especially, I love to travel to third world countries because they're so different from
Mhm.
everything else in the West. I was recently in Southeast Asia. I loved it. Like so different, it's almost like another planet, and that
Mhm.
was an enriching experience, really, that I take with me and that install it into my own art later. Even if I don't want to, it's going to be present there forever. Like the people are so different there too. I remember going to the streets of Sri Lanka and elder people and like anyone would just like want to invite me to their house and share tea with me just because I look different and I have tattoos and like I have a different skin color. They're
Mhm.
just curious about it. And here that never happens in the West. Like there's just no way people are that nice. And so it's almost like a good culture shock that you get to see more layers of people and humanity itself. And you get your character design also better. So, and I'm speaking character design, but I can speak environment design, tech as well. If you want to do a survival game, also you can find reference there. It's it's better. The real world has more bandwidth than any Pinterest image album or AI database or Google Images. That's just stuff that you're never gonna find on the internet or your TV sets, especially on the experience side of things. You really have to experience them, not just look at them and just like, oh, but really engage with them to then draw not just the visuals, but the feeling of the visuals. Or like, now I'm the one rambling. So,
Oh, no,
yeah.
no. I just
So,
want to say, just again for the record, that is probably one of the best analogies and descriptions of why to travel I think that's ever happened on this podcast. Like that is beautifully put, man. And it's so real because when you were talking, I was remembering my experiences of traveling different places. And one of the reasons why, and you mentioned third world countries. Last time I went, it's a family event. I was in India, but that was like over 20 years ago now.
cool.
From what it is now is very different to what it was back then. And it was such a stark difference
Really?
to what we experience here, like growing up, like the Indian diaspora, or whatever. Although here in the UK, you're classed obviously, like everyone sees things visually, so it's like your ethnicity and where you're from. But over there, you're a foreigner, and it's a very different kind of like experience. Even though I look like the people from there, but just what you mentioned there, like it did feel like a completely different world, completely different behaviors, completely different way of living, and it was some of the best moments of my life. But what I want to
No, I
get,
bet.
what I want to point out is that the reason why it's great research wise and creatively because it's not a curated experience. And I was seeing it from
Hmm.
like a almost behind the scenes, not like the tourist route. Like it was just with family, and they were taking me to all the local spots. So there's no filter. And things you see online, it's all curated. Google Images is the
Oh
best lens,
yes,
the best fully color graded everything. There's something about that unfiltered experience.
it's just authentic.
Yeah, exactly. And a creative, that is the ultimate fuel because our job is to take that unfiltered raw material and process it. If you're processing something that's already processed, there's not much more you can extract. And that's another cheat code for everyone to listen to is just go to somewhere
For
authentic.
sure. The cheat code is that don't stay in a five-star hotel. Just
Yes.
just stay where the locals are, like
Yes.
where the cheapest stuff. Eat at the cheapest taverns you can find. That's the best experience.
Do you have an overall profound experience from traveling? It might not even be creatively related. Like, do you have a memory that sticks to you straight away thinking, yes, that's my treasured memory or even most impactful one?
I would say that before Asia, I traveled mostly through Europe, and I think that was probably the most impactful one, because it was just such a different world. It's almost like another planet. That
Hmm.
felt like that to me to go to Asia. The people are different, the weather is different, the culture is different, things work different, and um, from the lifestyle, it will be different. I'll still take my laptop with me and work with it because that's what we do. But the life will be totally different. Like in here, I'll just here in Portugal, for context, I'll just wake up and listen to cars that are beeping around the street, everything's busy and stuff. And over there, I'll just wake up at like 6 with Buddhism chants on the distance and like the waves and natural sounds, things like that. It's just like it's so foreign, and it's just like from culture to society. That's just yeah. Um, Stories in specific, I was probably when I made friends with locals there, which was also super easy because they're very friendly. Um, it was probably, you know, that meme when someone finds out you're an artist and they ask you for a portrait, like, can you draw me? You're an artist. And like, that was the only time I fulfilled that request. Because
Oh,
when people ask me that, I'm like, yeah, maybe later. But in there, like, because they were so nice and I liked it so much that I actually drew someone, for a local from Sri Lanka, who actually ended up giving me a surf lesson in Sri Lanka
oh,
Bay.
sick.
And getting me from the hotel. It's nothing too specific and wild and very detailed, but just the sheer experience of him giving me a ride through his bike with me, getting my skateboard also hooked on his bike, uh, to get a ride faster to his surf camp, and going through just a tiny road of cement through the forest or the jungle even, and seeing monkeys swinging around us as we walk through the bike. That was just like something like so wild to me. To them, it's probably very trivial at this point, but to me, it's like something just, yeah, that was an
Oh,
experience
mate.
in
Yeah. Again,
itself.
I getting flashbacks just listening to that as well. Like, just yeah, like the environment, like the senses around you, like things that you would not normally experience from where you're from, like either the heat or the claustrophobic of like certain um dense places, sometimes the open nature of certain things, and yeah, absolutely gold. um Korea, we've spoken this amount of time and we haven't even asked about your career journey yet. What has your professional career journey been like, and um how's it gone?
Yeah, that's usually how people usually say that at the beginning. I'm
Yeah.
glad that we did not go with script of what's normal. Um, so I started as a graphic designer about 20 years ago, and then 10 years from there, I pivoted to concept art. I got a full-time job working freelance to an indie studio in Sweden called Frictional Games. I stood there for like a total of 4 years. The first year was freelance, then I moved in house. Yeah, I was working remote. I was the only concept artist for the whole production of Amnesia Revert, which is a horror game sequel that they were working on. I was a trial of fire to me as I was just finishing the Alex Figini course, so I took a lot of that knowledge to production. And at the time, I did not have time to update my portfolio. So they gave me the job based on an old portfolio, pre Learn Squared um, journey. And they actually got excited to see the concepts because they thought I was going to do a lot worse than I actually did.
Interesting.
By then, my skills had leveled up. So after freelance, they asked me to stay for a bit more. I stood there full time, working remote. Um, by the time COVID hit, the industry boomed, and I had a whole portfolio of cyberpunk IPs that I had been working on, personal projects. And I started to get emails from NetEase and other studios, other AAA studios as well. I was comfortable with the indie job, but eventually I had to explore that end
Mm,
as well. So I worked at freelance. I worked a bit for Wizards of the Coast and Archetype Entertainment and NetEase, Embark Studios, then through Volta as well, a little bit of work to EA Battlefield's DLC. Uh, I'm probably forgetting one or two because it was a nice experience to go freelance because you could work to a lot of different IPs in a short period rather than working in one IP by 5 years like I did at Frictional. So it was like a buffet of AAA IPs and studios and learning from many art directors and creative directors. And I've been freelance ever since. And yeah, it's been working. It's been working. Well, I think I can be thankful and grateful of how well it's been working. I never thought I'll do as good in a country that does not really have a games industry. So
interesting. That's a great topic to touch upon. I've spoken to many people on the podcast now and also offline, where they're from places where there either isn't a industry, so to speak, like local studios, or it's not that mobile to get your career started off. So, what would you say to people who are in a similar situation, and how would you, or what tips would you give them to enable them to get a start and get a break into the industry? What things should they look out for? What things should they keep doing? Because obviously,
mm,
like some places, as I'm sure we'd agree, like to be a good designer and to be a good artist, you have to put the work in. Nevertheless,
for sure.
your location does make certain things easier than for others. Then
Mm,
it doesn't. That makes sense.
for sure. Well, I think we can skip the part of you have to have a good portfolio and good
Mhm.
work and put in the work because that is essential. But location, in my experience, does make things a little bit easier. If you are in the UK or US, you're gonna have a lot more opportunities. So you have to really stand out in a good way in your portfolio to win over those opportunities, or for them to want to give you a visa. Um, if you are already in US, you don't need a visa, or they don't need to give you a visa because you're already there. So it makes things a lot easier. Same for the UK or some other industry dominant country. Um, it's not the end of all be all. It's not like it's a soft barrier, I want to say.
Mm.
It can feel like an art barrier at times, but it's definitely a barrier, but it's not like impossible to work. I've worked for US studios and studios all over the globe, and I'm from Portugal, place with no industry. So if I can, they can as well. But it's easier if you target indie studios that are not as competitive. A lot of times when I get mentorship requests, and most of my students, they want to work at Blizzard, EA, and there's nothing wrong with that. But everyone wants to work there. So you're going to compete with a lot more people than For instance, the studio I started at, which is like Frictional Games, this indie studio in Sweden, and you also get good experience from doing that. It also depends on where you live, because if you live in the US, working in an indie studio in Europe, that's probably not going to pay you a whole lot to live by. But so I have to be mindful of those things. But what I'm trying to say is that see where things are the most competitive and go the other way, where there's opportunity, where people are not trying to work there as hard, because everyone's going to apply to Blizzard and EA and Bethesda and things like that, and not as much as in other indie studios. And that's easier to get your foot in the door. Once you get your foot in the door, you stay there, learn, and on the side, you can keep applying to those studios and get your skills refined while you already have a job and you don't stress as much. That's the thing I would advise, to lower the stakes, so there's less pressure on you long term.
And I think it's important to impress upon as well, like you said, like a soft barrier. I think that's a great way to describe it. Obviously, everyone's got their different situations. For some people, it's always going to be tougher than others. But I think what you've explained, like there are ways to work through it, and there is a pathway through. You just got to, I guess, keep ensuring that you're making progress on the path rather than stay still. We mentioned things offline about things that we never expected to know about the industry, or things that we didn't know we needed to worry about until we got into the
Mm.
industry. Are there any kind of like tales or things that maybe not you wish you knew beforehand, but you would say, okay, keep an eye out for this for people starting out as they embark on their journey? So they don't kind of like maybe have some of the stumbles that we had, or even just a bit of a heads up.
Hmm. There's a lot I could say, but I also don't want to scare people away.
Sure.
Um, I'm not sure if you have to take the course I did, but in the first years in the industry, I had no social life. Basically, I was just drawing 10 hours a day until I got a job. And when I got a job at Frictional Games, I was still drawing 10 hours a day or more for like maybe 4 years or maybe a bit more. And that's what it takes to be competing at high level. It's like Cristiano Ronaldo or soccer, football, soccer if you're in US, I guess, but football or any other sport, tennis, to be competitive, you really have to want it more than everyone else and put in hours. And I would say don't forget about those things, because those things are important too, like travel, friendships, relationships, other things on the side of work. That's important. But be mindful that your job is going to be demanding, because you're like a high performing professional, and to be like that and to be in demand, it takes quite a lot from your time, from your energy, and make sure you really want it. And that if you are a good at drawing, and as in if you like drawing that much and to be creative, and creative is a big part of you, then you should still do it nonetheless. But make sure you really want it, and it's not just a trend that you're following, or it's like because it's cool. And like anything else really in life, just be make sure you follow what you like. But it may sound kind of trivial, but I've met a few people who don't really want the job but
Mm.
still try to get into the industry nonetheless. So yeah.
Miguel, we have to wrap up, sadly. I guess it's more of extension on what you just said, but any final, before we get to final thoughts, what can we look forward to you or from you in the near future or beyond?
I wish I knew. No, I just okay. I guess I'm still deciding if I'll move more into an art director position. That's something I've been doing lately, like helping people through the process of creating rather than creating myself. That's something I'm still deciding, but I do like to the hands-on work a lot more. I'm thinking about just starting my own studio on with Concept and outsourcing but that's just an idea that I'm playing around. There's a lot of introspection at the moment, but either one way or another, I either go with a studio of my own or I stay freelance for a while, and I just either way, I'll keep posting personal work and maybe environments. I have this IP now, which is kind of like a Nazi fighting game, kind of like in the political line of Wolfenstein, where you beat up Nazis, like the old Wolfenstein games, but it's like set in the 40s in Argentina because allegedly they all escaped to South America and Argentina, Buenos Aires after the war, and they lost the war, which is also a really rich in architecture time period because there's Art Nouveau and Art Deco starting to come around. And there's this Metal Gear Solid element to it, like espionage, and I find that the almost glamorization of the espionage lifestyle with that Art Deco vibe. That's something that I'm exploring with, that I may just publish whenever I get the time. But that's mostly it.
And any final thoughts or words from yourself to the listeners before we head off?
Well, yeah, thank you for listening and thank you for having me. Appreciate it a lot. And I've been following Lens Quest for a while and your work as well. And you've all been doing a lot of good work for the community. If it was not for Lens Square, I'm not sure I'll have this career. Wow. I'm really not sure because the courses are just top notch and they keep getting better and the response is better as well. It's nice to see them. To have joined Learn Square at the beginning and see you growing your Instagram and having now a podcast. Back then it was just releasing a few trailers of each course each month or something, and like it's nice to see how the response has been positive and growing. Yeah.
On behalf of the Learn Square team, we thank you as well. Again, seeing your journey from the beginning, and this is, and I'm speaking on definitely for behalf of the rest of the team as well. Like, your career and your journey is the main reason why we continue to do what we do, because it gives validation for just to continue the mission, I guess, so to speak. And it's been amazing having you on. And sorry it took so long.
No, it's the anticipation just probably made things better. It's okay.
Fair enough. There we go. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you.
A huge thanks to Miguel for that amazing conversation. Hit the links to see what he's up to and to give him a follow. Then head to learnsquare.com and take some of the same courses Miguel did and propel your own creative journey. Remember, all of our first lessons are free. I've been your host, Aaron Danda. Till next time.